Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Evermore Love, the channel where we weave tales that remind us why love is the greatest adventure of all. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and join our growing family. We're so close to 1K subscribers, and your full watch today could be the spark that gets us there. Stick with me through this entire story. It's one that tugs at the heartstrings and leaves you believing in second chances. Grab your cozy blanket, dim the lights, and let's step into a world where secrets bloom into forever. Today's story is called I Keep His Secret in English Through Stories. In the quaint coastal town of Harbor's Edge, where the sea whispered secrets to the cliffs and the fog rolled in like a lover's sigh, Elena Harper spent her days surrounded by words. She was a high school English teacher, the kind whose classroom smelled of aged paperbacks and fresh rain, her voice rising and falling like the waves outside her window. At 32, Elena had built a life of quiet routines, morning jogs along the pebbled shore, evenings curled up with a novel, and weekends lost in the dusty aisles of the Salty Page, the local bookstore that felt more like a sanctuary than a shop. It was there, on a drizzly autumn afternoon in October, that she first noticed him. He stood in the poetry section, his broad shoulders hunched over a worn copy of Pablo Neruda's verses, his dark hair falling in unruly waves that caught the dim lamplight. His fingers traced the lines as if they were braille, mouthing the words silently. Elena, browsing for a new anthology to inspire her students, paused. There was something magnetic about him, the way his brow furrowed in concentration, the faint scar tracing his jawline like a map to forgotten battles. "Need help finding something?" she asked, her voice soft, not wanting to shatter the spell. He looked up and his eyes, deep hazel pools flecked with gold, locked onto hers. A slow smile spread across his face, warm as sunlight breaking through clouds. "Ah yes, practice. English is, how you say, my second ghost." His accent was a melody of rolling Rs and clipped vowels, hinting at distant lands, perhaps Eastern Europe, she guessed, or the Balkans. She laughed, a light sound that surprised even her. "Second language, you mean? Well, Neruda's a great start. His love poems could make anyone fluent in heartache." She plucked a bilingual edition from the shelf and handed it to him. "I'm Elena." "Alex," he replied, taking the book with a nod that felt like a bow. "Thank you, Elena. Stories. They bridge the gaps, no?" They talked for an hour that day, perched on mismatched stools by the bookstore's tiny cafe corner. Alex ordered black coffee, strong and bitter like his homeland's soil, and as the rain pattered against the fogged windows, he began to tell her a story. Not just any story, a fable about a fisherman who caught a mermaid in his nets, only to release her because her songs were too beautiful to cage. But woven into the tale were glimpses of Alex himself, the salt spray on his skin from childhood coasts, the ache of leaving behind a family fractured by war. His English stumbled at times, words tripping over each other like eager children, but Elena didn't mind. She leaned in, her green eyes wide, hanging on every pause, every gesture of his hands that painted the air. From that day, their worlds intertwined like vines on an old trellis. Alex appeared at the Salty Page every Saturday, a ritual that Elena came to crave like her first sip of morning tea. He'd wait for her in the same corner, a notebook open before him, scribbling phrases he wanted to perfect. "Teach me, Elena," he'd say with that crooked grin. "Make my words dance like yours." And so she did. They'd wander the stacks, her pointing out sonnets by Shakespeare, him countering with fragments of folk tales from his village, stories of star-crossed lovers who defied kings, or wanderers who found home in a stranger's eyes. One evening, as twilight bled purple across the sky, they sat on the bookstore's rooftop garden, a hidden gem overlooking the harbor. The air was crisp, scented with salt and blooming jasmine. Alex pulled her close, his arm a tentative weight around her shoulders. "Tell me one tonight," she whispered, her head resting against his chest, feeling the steady thrum of his heart. He hesitated, his fingers toying with the ends of her auburn hair. Then, in a voice low and laced with shadows, he began, Once, there was a boy in a land of stone houses and endless winters. He dreamed of cities by the sea, where words flowed free like rivers. But a storm came, a great tearing storm that stole his voice, made him silent to the world. He fled across oceans, carrying only whispers in a locked box. And one day, in a town of fog and forgotten dreams, he met a woman whose laughter unlocked the key. Elena's breath caught. The story felt too real, too raw. What happened to the boy, Alex? Did he ever open the box? His eyes darkened, storm clouds gathering. Not yet. Some secrets. They sink like anchors if spoken too soon. She didn't press. Instead, she turned in his arms, her lips brushing his in a kiss that tasted of salt and promise. It was soft at first, exploratory, like the first waves lapping at shore. Then deeper, urgent, as if they'd both been adrift too long. His hands framed her face, thumbs tracing the curve of her cheeks, and in that moment, the world narrowed to the warmth of his breath mingling with hers, the distant cry of gulls, the faint glow of lighthouse beams cutting through the dusk. Love bloomed fiercely between them, petal by petal. Weekends turned into stolen midnights, picnics on the beach where they'd build sandcastles shaped like storybook castles, her teaching him idioms over shared slices of apple pie, piece of cake making him chuckle until tears pricked his eyes. They'd dance in her tiny kitchen to scratchy vinyl records, his steps clumsy but earnest, her laughter bubbling up as he dipped her low, whispering, "You make me brave, Malaya, my sweet one." But shadows lingered. Alex never spoke of his past beyond the stories, and Elena sensed the weight he carried. Late-night calls in a language she didn't understand. Harsh, urgent tones that left him pacing her living room like a caged wolf. Once, she found a faded photograph tucked in his wallet. Him, younger, arm in arm with a woman whose smile mirrored his own, a child between them. "Family?" she'd asked gently. He'd snapped the wallet shut, his face paling. "Old ghosts. Let them sleep, Elena." The challenges crept in like the tide, relentless and cold. Her colleagues whispered, "Who's the mystery man? He barely speaks English." Students teased her in class, mimicking his accent with cruel precision. And then came the night of the Harbor Festival, strings of lanterns swaying like fireflies, the air alive with fiddle music and the scent of grilled seafood. They danced under the stars, her sundress swirling around his legs, his hand firm at her waist. But midway through a waltz, his phone buzzed, a call he took in the shadows, his voice rising in frantic bursts of his native tongue. When he returned, his face was ashen, eyes hollow. "I must go. Now." "Alex, talk to me," she pleaded, grabbing his sleeve as the crowd swirled around them. Rain began to fall, fat drops that soaked through her dress, mirroring the tears she fought back. "Whatever it is, we face it together. No more stories to hide behind." He pulled her into an alley, away from the revelry, the brick wall rough against her back. Lightning cracked the sky, illuminating the anguish in his features. "You don't understand, Elena. I'm not free. Back home I wrote truths that kings did not like. Books that named the corrupt, exposed the lies. They hunted me, a bounty on my head, my wife and son." His voice broke, the words tumbling out like a dam bursting. "They took them. Said it was an accident, but I know. I fled here, changed my name, my life. Every story I tell you, it's a veil. I practice English not for poetry, but for survival. If they find me, it's over. For me. For us." The rain poured harder, mingling with her sobs as she clutched his shirt, feeling the tremor in his frame. "You think I'd run? Alex, I've fallen so deeply. Your broken English is my favorite language, your story's my home. We're not ghosts, we're alive right here." She kissed him fiercely then, tasting salt from tears and sea, her hands tangling in his wet hair. He resisted for a heartbeat, then surrendered, his arms crushing her to him as thunder rolled above. In that storm-swept alley, confessions poured out. The wife's name, Maria, the son's laughter like bells, the guilt that gnawed at him nightly. Elena held him through it all, whispering, We'll rewrite this story. Together. The months that followed were a tempest of their own. Lawyers consulted in hushed tones, visas tangled in red tape, nights where fear clawed at their dreams. Alex's words grew stronger, his stories now joint tapestries. Her adding verses to his fables, them co-authoring a manuscript under a pseudonym, truths veiled in fiction once more. But love, that stubborn bloom, pushed through the cracks. On the anniversary of their first meeting, under a canopy of stars on that same beach, Alex knelt in the sand, a simple ring glinting in his palm, silver etched with waves. "Elena, my bridge, my anchor," he said. His English flawless now, laced with the poetry they'd built. "I kept my secret in stories because I feared losing you. But you've shown me, love isn't fragile. It's the strongest tale of all. Marry me. Let me keep your heart in every word I speak." Tears streamed down her face as she nodded, pulling him up into an embrace that sealed their vow. The waves crashed approval, and as they kissed, the horizon glowed with dawn's promise. A new chapter, unburdened, alive. And so, in Harbor's Edge, where secrets once hid in the fog, Elena and Alex wrote their love not in whispers, but in bold, enduring ink. For in the end, the greatest stories aren't kept. They're shared, heart to heart, forevermore. Phew, what a journey that was, right? If Elena and Alex's tale touched your soul like it did mine, drop a like, share it with someone who needs a dose of romance, and subscribe to Evermore Love for more stories that celebrate the magic of connection. We're inching toward that 1K milestone. Your support means the world. Until next time, keep loving fiercely. See you soon.